Welcome to the channel. My name is Matthias. Today we're going to finally finish off the X of Swords crossover. We're going to cover a lot of issues, and we're going to blast through most of them because here we have the tournament and some really weird things take place in that part of the story. So we're going to cover X-Men issues 14 and 15, Marauders issues 14 and 50, Excalibur issues 14 and 15, Wolverine issue 7, X-Force issue 14, Cable issue 6, and X of Swords Destruction, which would be the conclusion. So, as I mentioned a couple of seconds ago, this story revolves around a tournament, a competition, and I'm a real sucker for these type of stories. I don't care how contrived the situation leads to this tournament in the first place in the story. I just always get a kick out of them, and when this story starts to get into the really weird and whimsical and bizarre, as we are going to see, it really didn't work for me. Hickman and Tini Howard tried to channel old school Chris Claremont with the early days of Excalibur, because obviously we're dealing with a character that popped up a lot in that series, which is Saturnine, and we are on Otherworld. But here they just go way too far. They don't know how to manage the tone. They feel like they're jumping the shark every 2 seconds. It makes you appreciate how Chris Claremont was able to pull off stuff like this back in the day, and it didn't take you out of the story. But then we get a awesome, incredible conclusion to this crossover. So again, it's all over the place. So the story picks up. We have the contenders from Arakko and Krakoa. They're at this big banquet that has been thrown by Saturnine. The characters from each side meet each other for the first time, and they're studying each other. They're trying to understand how the powers work. As I mentioned in the previous video, all the characters from Arakko, all new characters that Hickman presented to us, find them to be fascinating. Also, we have all the big movers and shakers from Otherworld, because this weird dimension or realm is divided into different kingdoms. So you have Merlin, Lady Roma, Mad Jim Jaspers, amongst many other very odd and interesting characters. And what happens is Wolverine tries to jump the gun and kill Saturnine to stop this whole tournament. And what happens before he's able to do this, he receives a mental blast from Saturnine where he sees into the future that if this tournament does not take place, Earth is going to fall to the attack of the mutants from Krakoa. They're going to take over and they're going to burn everything to the ground. So after this whole situation where basically Saturnine tells Wolverine, sit down, you naughty boy, don't try anything like that again. Out of all the interactions that we get between the characters of Krakoa and Arakko, I love the interaction between Magik and Gorgon and Iska the Unbeaten, where they trick her into using her powers and they're trying to find a weak spot in it and they can't. Then we get a situation where War realizes that Wolverine might be a handful. She tries to poison his food. And what happens is, by accident, Cypher eats his food. He almost dies. He's saved by this pretty interesting character. His name is White Sword. He's a mutant of Arakko. And we discover that he's part of a different warring faction within Arakko, that he's not really down with the Four Horsemen or Genesis. He's able to purge the poison out of Cypher's system because basically that's his power set. He's a healer and he actually can resurrect people, but when he does this, he actually enslaves them. But in this case, he relieves Cypher of any obligations towards him. So after this banquet, we have the start of the tournament, and the first match is a death bout between Iska the Unbeaten and Captain Britain. That, just in case, for those who don't know, Captain Britain during this time was Betsy Braddock, and she has a Starlight Sword, which has become a replacement for the Sword of Might or the Amulet of Right. That's how Captain Britain used to get his powers back in the day. Now, this Starlight Sword is like the beacon of the existence of not only of the Starlight Citadel, also of Captain Britain. But the thing is, during this time, there's only one Captain Britain. It's complicated and pretty convoluted, but the thing is, the battle starts, and with no explanation, with one of Iska's blows, Captain Britain falls to the ground and shatters like glass. There's no explanation why. It's very probable that Saturnine is the one responsible, and she used a spell or something like that or an enchantment, but you never see her do it in the first place. I scoured and read all the data pages just in case to see if there was any clue there, and I couldn't find any. It's just something that happens, and it's probably the only important thing that you need to know about the tournament that I will explain later. The next competition is between Cypher and Bay the Blood Moon. And Cypher thinks he's going to die because he thinks they're going to have to go into combat. Bay seems to be a very large and powerful woman. And out of nowhere, instead of going into battle, no, they have to get married. And it's just a very weird and surreal moment. Now, I remember when I first read this and I immediately thought, oh crap, they're going for old school Excalibur. So both characters get married. And the thing is that they actually really fall in love with each other because Cypher can't understand the language that Bay uses. And I have no idea what Bay the Blood Moon sees in Cypher, but the thing is, they seem to be madly in love. Now, thinking about the beginning of the story, everything that goes down in the tournament are shown through a bunch of tarot cards that I mentioned previously that she has given to all the contenders. Maybe, I guess, that she needs everything to happen as shown in the tarot cards to bring back the Captain Britain Corps. I'm not sure. It's not explained. Then the next match that we get is between Magik and Pogger Pog. That when I first saw it, I thought to myself, this is going to be epic. And again, instead of going into battle, they have to do an arm wrestling match, which obviously Pogger Pog is going to win. Then we get a pretty cool battle between Wolverine and the Summoner. And Wolverine ends up killing him, but he doesn't realize that the rules were the one who dies is the one who wins. Because during this whole tournament, all the rules seem stacked against Krakoa. And that Saturnine is sort of like messing with them. Then Wolverine has to go into a second battle, but he has been drugged and his healing factor is not working properly. Mad Jim Jaspers is the one responsible, obviously under the orders of Saturnine. Then we get a rematch between Pogger Pog and Magik, and I thought to myself, okay, finally, we're going to get this really awesome battle. And Magik realizes that this giant crocodile monster thing that Pogger Pog is just a battle armor. And she's able to defeat the little troll that lives on the inside. And when this happens, I thought to myself, why would you ruin Pogger Pog? He's such an awesome looking character. It reminds me of what happened to the character Tusk on the Dark Riders. And things just get weirder and weirder and more surreal. And to the point that you feel like they're jumping the shark every other panel. There's one moment where we have a food competition, then a dance-off, then a fashion contest. Then we get a battle between Storm and Death because Death seems to have a death stare. Sorry, it sounded really redundant the way I said it. Where she uses the reflection of her blade to set his powers right back at him, and he ends up dying at the hands of a bunch of vampires. Then we cut back to Krakoa. We have the Quiet Council. We have Cyclops and Jean Grey having an audience with them. And they tell him, look, things are not going as planned on Otherworld. Can we send a mutant team in and try to rectify this whole situation and stop the tournament and stop Saturnine and stop the Rocky Mutants? And the Quiet Council tells them, nope, you can't do that. We can't officially send you guys. But if you want to go and we don't know about that, you can do it. Cable gets his butt kicked by Iska the Unbeaten. Then we get the only truly awesome moment within the context of the tournament where we have Gorgon going against White Sword and his 200-man army. It just really shows off how much of a badass this character is and how wasted he was during the Krakoan era. Then we get into the final stretch of the story that if you separate it from the tournament, which was pretty terrible, it's freaking epic. You have the battle between Apocalypse and Genesis. We have Insomniac, who really does not want to hurt his wife, but he knows she's under the control of the Annihilation Mask. And what ends up happening is that Apocalypse, to save his wife, he rips off the Annihilation Mask. He puts it on himself. He starts fighting against its control. It's actually a pretty compelling moment. While all this is going down, basically the shit hits the fan. Cyclops and all the mutants from Krakoa arrive on the scene, start battling all the mutants from Arakko and the demons of Amenth. We have the summoners starting to bring in these kaiju-sized eldritch monsters. And here's when we discover that Saturnine needed to break the Starlight Sword, that if there was only one Starlight Sword, there's going to be one Captain Britain. And since Captain Britain was shattered into 1,000 pieces, she's able to bring back the Captain Britain core for each piece that is broken off. So basically, the rest of the tournament was not necessary. She was the one responsible for the mutants of Arakko arriving on Otherworld and engineering this whole situation. The thing is that when she brings back the Captain Britain core, they're not other versions of Brian Braddock. They're other versions of Betsy Braddock. And she is so pissed off over the situation. And the thing is that this new Captain Britain core is able to tip things in favor of our merry mutants. They're able to stop the war. And then what happens is Saturnine goes to Apocalypse. She removes the Annihilation Mask. She relieves him of this burden, and she makes it into this staff that's easier to manage. It's pretty cool that we discover further down the line that the Shadow King, the dark entity, not Amal Farouk, is the one behind the corrupting force of the mask. And it seems to be like one of the Hell Lords of the shattered dimensions of Hell. So what happens is we have a truce between the mutants of Krakoa and Arakko. The mutants of Arakko return to the 616 universe. But to be able to do this, to have the mutants of Arakko return to Earth, there's like a trade-off where Apocalypse stays behind with his family in Amenth. So this video has been way too long, but thankfully we're finished. We finished the X of Swords. Hope you guys like this video. See you guys next time. Bye.